It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. It's my lucky day. My lucky day. Don't need a pot of gold.
Good morning, everybody. I really like that song. It's like super peppy. It's hard not to listen to it, even though I only play it for a few seconds for you guys. It's just hard not to listen to it and not be like, yeah, ah. I love how I feel after doing these podcasts in the morning. These are such a podcast, video. I don't know what this is. These shows. It's just I'm fired up, and throughout the entire day, I feel like I can conquer anything. So, hi. Today is what is today? Today is July 23rd, and I want to welcome you to today's Coffee and Cloud Native. My name is Adrian Goins. Usually I have a little title thing that pops up. Today I don't, so you'll just have to believe me. My name is Adrian Goins. And every weekday you're going to find me here telling you about what happened yesterday in the world of Cloud Native. There is so much going on out there that it's completely impossible to keep track of it all. So I wanted to create this show as a place where you can learn about what's happening with the software and the solutions that you already use, and then also as a place to learn about new things that you've never heard of. So with that, let's get started. CodyMD. Do you know CodyMD? This was a toss-up between, is this a tool of the day or is it a news piece? CodyMD, also known as HackMD, lost my notes for today. CodyMD is a collaborative markdown editor that is totally free. So think of it like Google Docs, but for Markdown. I write pretty much everything in Markdown because it's like one step above writing text notes. You just need a text editor. It's still totally readable, even if you don't have it rendered into the nice formatting. And it's just a really great way to take notes, particularly bulleted lists. It's like, I don't know, it just seems like the thing. So CodyMD is a Markdown editor, and it can, well, you can run it self-hosted, which is fantastic. It's very lightweight. You just need a container and a database, basically. And you can share your notes with other people. It plugs into backend identity provider systems via OAuth or SAML or LDAP, and they've actually done a lot of updates on it since moving to version 2. The latest version includes additional Markdown editors or Markdown renderers for things like Fretboard. This thing's kind of cool. You can make guitar fret things out of Markdown. Mind maps and CSV. You can theme it. It's got a linter built into it. It's just fantastic. And we actually use it for the show notes here, and I also use it for the office hours with Rancher. So check it out. It's funny. Apparently, as the week goes on, people announce fewer and fewer things. So yesterday, I spent a lot of time digging around trying to find things that were interesting to talk to you guys about. And most of the news is, well, honestly, it's pretty boring. But there were some articles that caught my attention, and hang on a second here. Yeah, so there were some articles that caught my attention, and this was one of them. Sorry, I'm a little distracted here. I just had to check Twitter really quick. I'm checking the chat. I see nobody's in the chat. I'm always concerned that like there's something wrong with the stream. But YouTube over on the other laptop is telling me excellent connection. I love when YouTube praises me. Sometimes YouTube says like good connection, and I feel terrible because good in YouTube land is not so good. All right, so security. We talk about security a lot, or at least we have this week. This is the first week, so there you go. We talk about security a lot. Image scanning solutions that exist frequently require that you run a specific vendor's piece of software. And if you want ease and convenience, that's what you're going to have to do. There are open source solutions. For example, there's Claire. And in fact, a lot of the paid solutions that you get are just using Claire on the back end, but they've wrapped it in a UI and a workflow that makes it a lot easier for you to manage and use the item. But Sysdig, I love Sysdig. Sysdig wrote an article. Okay, let me back up. Rancher does masterclasses, and I I want to avoid having master classes where we have partners come in that just turn into a sales pitch. I try to make sure that the content that people bring in from outside satisfies a need to learn how to do something, as well as showing that there's a commercial solution for doing that thing. So anything that any company offers as a commercial solution can be done manually. It might not be pleasant, it might not be easy, but it can still be done. And I feel that it's important to show people the how to fish thing. So whatever the solution is, it's like, here's how you solve this problem. We're experts in this problem space. We solve it like this, but you could solve it like that. But in both of these solutions, there's still an overlap in how the problem is getting solved. And once they've established how to solve the problem, they can talk about their commercial solution and be like, well, if you want to solve it faster or easier, you can just pay us some money and we'll take care of it for you. That's great. That is why I'm bringing up this article, which is ultimately a pitch for Sysdig Secure, which is a fantastic product, but they teach you how to think about image scanning and what you can do in your environment to just build this in as an automated thing. I've said over and over, security is a state of mind. Security is not convenient. Security is something that you're always going to be working on. And if you can just build the mindset into everything that you do, well, then it becomes a lot easier. And the easier it is to do, the more likely you are to actually do it. So they have a bunch of stuff in here. In fact, they have 12 different things. 12 things that you can do to become an image scanning ninja master. Ninjas. Did you guys see that there's actually a guy who has a master's degree in ninja studies? He's the only guy in the world that has a master's degree in ninja studies. Now, I know people who train in ninjutsu and martial arts, but this is super cool. Anyway, back to Sysdig. The article contains solutions that don't depend on Sysdig Secure. Things like, where you can actually put your image scanning. Do you need to schlep stuff out to an intermediate registry to actually do the scanning portion? Can you do it inline? And here you can with Sysdig Secure. They also give you instructions on how to do it with the various providers, GitLab, GitHub Actions, and so on. But then as you dig down further, they get into things that you can actually do with Kubernetes and the admission controllers to restrict what's going on if an image hasn't passed validation or if it's not tagged in a certain way. Pinning image versions. Now we get into actual strategies for operation. Scanning for OS vulnerabilities. This one, number 7, making use of distroless images. I hadn't even heard of this. This is fantastic. By removing the distribution, because honestly, the container doesn't really need all the other stuff that comes with Ubuntu or Debian or whatever you're using as your base image. You remove the potential for dependencies and vulnerabilities. I guess remove the potential for vulnerabilities, not dependencies. So this is a great strategy, and they also demonstrate that it dramatically reduces image size, which is just better for everybody. So check this article out and learn how to become that guy. I have a GitLab registry. Oh. I have a GitLab repository. Hello, good morning, coffee and cloud native. GitLab also has a registry. I use it for my container storage and backend stuff. But I have a repo for the show. So if you are interested in any of the sources of anything that I've talked about previously, I created a new directory. This will be linked in the video description as well. That has a link to the video itself, as well as the items and the links for everything that we talk about. So at the end of every episode, I'll be updating this, and I will also be updating the video description. So I'm sharing that with you guys. If you have ideas for content, I want to make sure that I have as many ways for you to contact me as possible. So I've got people that have been sending me emails. That's great. I've got people that have been hitting me up on Twitter. That's great. I've got people who are posting things and just tagging it with CNCN on Twitter, which is also great. I'll start getting some stuff out on LinkedIn, so you can find me there. I'm terrible at looking at LinkedIn because it's a complete time sink. Every time I just go and see, let's accept invitations to join my network. It's like an hour later, and I'm chatting with people from high school, and so I just stay away from it. But you can also just post issues here, and issues for any type of content that you'd like to see, either for the show or for the general channel as well. So it's just another thing that's available for you. Traffic Director. This is crazy. If you've worked with Service Mesh contains a control plane and a data plane. So the control plane is the management layer. It's the thing that actually, it's like the puppeteer, so it has the rules and it makes decisions. And then the data plane is the proxy sidecars that, hey, we got people joining the chat and saying hello. Cool. Hey, Justin, got Ariel. Ariel, I love running into you everywhere that I go. And I found him on LinkedIn the other day and I was just like, Ariel! Wojtek, nice to see you. Binoy and Sajad, thanks for joining. So, proxy sidecars, service mesh. The data plane handles intercepting and proxying traffic to the other containers in the pod, and it's the actual communication layer. So Google previously built Traffic Director to deal with the control plane, and now this is crazy, they've enhanced it to directly configure gRPC clients instead of configuring the sidecars that were sitting in front of gRPC clients. I don't know, it's like Inception or Outception. If you read this article, it's like, well, they basically took all of the service mesh logic and they just baked it into Traffic Director, bypassing the sidecars for direct configuration. The ultimate goal here is they want to make it easier for you to benefit from service mesh without having to invest the time and energy to manage it if that's not what you want to do. This is the same argument that we get for hosted Kubernetes clusters with providers like AWS and Azure and Google for GKE or EKS or AKS. If you don't want to manage the control plane, maybe you want to manage the control plane, in which case, great, go manage a control plane. Maybe you want to get down and dirty and covered in grease and play with your service mesh, no problem. But if you don't, and you're using stuff with gRPC, then, and if you're in Google, it's a lot of ifs, then, well, Traffic Director might be for you. So the way that they did this is they took the same APIs that Envoy uses and they just bundled them directly into gRPC. And then they added support for native gRPC health checks. And then all of this trickles back up into the GCP load balancer layer. So they're used for routing and decision making. And basically you get like a service meshless service mesh. That's why I was calling it Inception-y. So it's not free, but that's cool, whatever. Not everything's free in the world. But if you're using GKE or if you're using the Google Compute Engine and you run gRPC applications, this can save you some management overhead. And of course, as I say again and again, the way that we move forward in life is by reducing our cognitive load. The fewer things that we have to keep track of in our brains, the more resources we have to spend on the things that matter. So even if you like monkeying around with a service mesh, maybe you can spend that energy elsewhere for a greater return. It's like investing or anything. Like I have a home lab that I play around in, but I really just try to make my work stuff as easy and painless as possible. We don't need more stress. There's another article that I'll link in the description that has more of a deep dive into how all of this proxyless gRPC stuff works. Hang on a second, I have to turn off my heater. Okay, I'm back. It's just got really, really warm in here with my door closed. It's not raining today. Yesterday the sun came out, and that's super exciting. You can see the sun starting to come up. We're headed out of winter and into spring, so we were able to fully charge the batteries from the solar yesterday, which always makes me super happy. I watch my little graphanographs as they rocket up in the morning. We're going to get sun for another couple of days, and then the rain starts again. But it is still cold. All right. I made a video about Kubernetes Invaders back in January. It's a chaos engineering thing that a guy wrote kind of as a fun thing. I don't have it up in a tab, but you can find it on the channel. It was in January. So it's chaos engineering for Kubernetes, and basically it's like Space Invaders, but you're shooting your pods, and then it's a way to test the resilience of your applications and your cluster in general. Well, this is apparently a thing. it's not just chaos engineering, but it's gamification of chaos engineering as you just destroy your cluster and hopefully watch it recover. This guy wrote a game to do it on a node-by-node basis. And, well, first, let me just show you the little video that he has here. So you approach your nodes and like a little door opens, and then you go inside. And once you're inside, you can see the pods, and they have health, and you just blast away at them until they die. He posted this earlier this month. It just was brought to my attention yesterday. I guess this is just going to loop, so I'll stop that. It was brought to my attention yesterday, and in his blog article, he says down at the bottom that if there's enough interest, he'll post the code for it. I want him to post the code. I would love to have this out there so that we can install it and play with it, even if we just play with it in a demo workspace. So what I'd like for you to do is, once you see this link come up, jump over here and on his page in the comments section, just put something asking him to post the code up on GitHub. And let's see if we can get him to do it. Also, from this page, there's a couple of cool things. One, he's using Arcade. Arcade that we covered yesterday as tool of the day. How awesome is that? And also, down here in the comments, somebody referenced this, Wild West Kubernetes, which is another, I thought they had a picture here. They had a picture here. Not sure what's going on here as the internet comes screeching to a halt. There we go. Hey, Siam is here. Hey, Mike. So this is another game that somebody else created. Okay, YouTube's still telling me, oh, no. Internet. Yeah, hang on. Okay. We're back. Sorry about that. I discovered yesterday, there's a thing that happens in my house where periodically, even though I'm prioritizing traffic from this machine above everything else while I'm doing streaming, sometimes there's this burst in traffic, and it's short-lived, and it affects Zoom calls where everything just kind of for a few seconds and then it recovers again. I caught it happening yesterday, and I discovered that it's automatic updates from Ubuntu. I have a bunch of Ubuntu machines, Ubuntu 1804. All of my 1604 machines have automatic updates turned off for this very reason, and they moved where that happens in Ubuntu 18. Let me make sure that my router is actually up in 4G. They moved it, so all of the new 18 machines that I've been installing are just slamming the heck out of my firewall. All right, well, there's nothing I can do about this at the moment except try to... Wow, it's dropped a bunch of frames. All right, if the stream is totally crappy, I apologize. If it ends up being totally crappy, then I will repost a local copy of it because I also record it locally. All right, let's just continue. So, Wild West Kubernetes. I haven't actually installed this. It's another game that somebody created for chaos engineering. Your pods are actually like, I don't know if they come through, but they do something and you can like shoot them and destroy them. And wow, we're dropping tons of frames. Yeah, okay. Well, I see people in the chat saying the stream is working, so I'll just stop worrying about it. We're going to close this laptop, and we will just deal with the things that we can control in our life. What's next? Oh, we already showed that. Kubernetes patterns for capacity planning. Let's move this window over here. Hang on, everybody. I don't have my little standby video thing to play for you. I can definitely see that something is adversely affecting my network. Sajat says that it's actually Snapd, and Snapd doesn't even want to shut down. Yeah, I spent a little bit of time yesterday looking at what on the Ubuntu machines is actually responsible for this. Yeah, it's quite frustrating. All right, so capacity planning is one of those things that is, well, I mean, it's important. Resource requests and limits, they're like health checks on pods. Like, you need them, because if you don't have them, then bad stuff happens. But if you do have them, but they're configured badly, then other bad stuff happens. So I like articles that explain simple concepts for things that have dire consequences in a way that makes the concept easy to understand. If you, in this moment, are unable to recite the details of exactly what happens with scheduling and eviction in response to requests and limits, or if you know somebody who's working with Kubernetes who could, benefit from a quick lesson on this, this is a good article. This gives a good explanation of requests and limits, as well as what is a shareable and a non-shareable resource, what you can and can't control, like the internet today, and then what actually happens inside of the cluster based on the configuration that you've set, and then what can happen if you don't specify requests and limits. So this is cool from an educational standpoint. Again, they have a paid product, but this is one of those things where they're just sharing their knowledge with the community so that we can all learn and do things better. Oh, this one I totally forgot to actually make a tab for. GitLab released version 13.2 yesterday. GitLab, it's one of those things that I love. It's like HA Proxy and Kubernetes and Rancher. I love them. I love their software. I love them as a company. I was running GitLab in Rancher back before I started doing stuff with Kubernetes. I've given talks on GitLab at the DevOps Days in Brasilia. So yesterday they released version 13.2. And you can do things like you can view Jira issues inside of GitLab. You can diff wiki page versions like you can with a repository. You can run load testing now as part of your CI/CD pipeline, so that's pretty cool. And they even have support for the GitLab runner on ZOS. ZOS is a mainframe. What are you doing? Why are you running a GitLab runner on ZOS? That's crazy. Clearly somebody is, and somebody needed this, so they're like, great, okay, here you go. The other thing that's cool about GitLab is they're a company whose workforce has always been 100% remote. And since all of us have, I've always been remote as well. I live in the middle of nowhere. But a lot of people changed to working remote. And for a lot of people, that was a big change. And for a lot of companies, that was a difficult change. So GitLab released a lot of information about how they maintain communication, how they keep meetings real, how they keep people from getting depressed, and released all of this to help businesses transition to a remote work environment successfully. And I thought that was fantastic, taking, once again, the knowledge that they have about a particular domain and just sharing it with everybody so that we can all live better lives. All right, we are almost out of time because of internet drama. I want to put a tower on my property. I'm trying to find a company here in Chile who will put a 36-meter tower that's 150 feet on my property, because then I can clear the tree line and I can get line of sight to a hill that's near the town that's about 45 minutes away. Pop up a couple of Ubiquiti air fiber antennas and I can get 450 megabits line of sight. And then I just need something on the other side, that because the towns all have fiber. So just go to somebody's house or something and be like, hey, I'm going to put an antenna on your roof and a thing on there, and I'll pay for your internet, and you just don't touch it. And then maybe we can solve my internet issues. All right, tool of the day. Today's tool of the day is a kubectl plugin. Well, it's actually not really a kubectl plugin. I don't know why I said that. It's a tool for Kubernetes that works with your kubectl environment. You can actually install it with Brew. You can install it with Crew. Crew is a competitor to Arcade. This is not in Arcade. I would love to see it in Arcade. Hopefully it will be in Arcade soon. But what this does, since we just had the article on CPU requests and limits, is this shows you what the configuration and utilization is for CPU and memory requests and limits in your cluster. You can also have it show by pod, and you can also have it show utilization if you are using metrics server. So I wanted to do a really quick demonstration of this. I'm not going to show you on my clusters because I ran it against my 2 clusters last night, and it's pretty embarrassing what it came back with, which is kind of the value of all of these things. But let's really quickly pop up a K3D cluster. Not cluster delete, cluster create. K3D is Rancher's tool for running a complete K3S cluster inside of Docker. You can run multi-cluster stuff locally for development. We covered this in an episode earlier this week. It takes just a few seconds to spin up a Kubernetes cluster locally, and then it's a Kubernetes cluster. I run my kubeconfig with multiple files in the environment variable. But you can, get my cluster. But you can, it doesn't like that. But you can just get the kubeconfig afterwards. And now let's just make sure that we have, so there we go. So with this, we can run kube capacity. And obviously we just launched this cluster, so there's nothing going on there, but you see it gives us CPU limits and requests and memory limits and requests. And if we were to run this with -- pods, it wraps, so you kind of got to figure that out in the view, but it shows us what the actual configuration is for pods. Metric server isn't installed here, so I can't show you the utilization, but this is super cool in conjunction with the article we were just talking about to go look at how your stuff is actually running. And if you're awesome, good job. I have some work to do on my clusters to get them back from being oversubscribed. All right. Let's just check the chat really quick. Put me back in there. Yes, customize. All right, so Chaim says you'd love to discover new solutions to deploy the same code to different Kubernetes clusters with different runtime environment variables. One code, multiple deployments. And Justin says consider using Kustomize. Yes, Kustomize is fantastic for doing templating and deploying stuff to different environments. Later on today, I will be doing Rancher's Intro to Kubernetes and Rancher class. That's at 1 p.m. Eastern. You can register for that if you want at rancher.com/ training. Yeah, at rancher.com/training. That's free. It's 90 minutes, and I also talk about Kustomize as I'm going through all of the Kubernetes stuff. Yeah, so there you go. You can register for that. And that's it for the chat. So we are at the end of today's show. I want to thank you all for coming and hanging out and tolerating what may or may not have been internet issues. I'll post all of the links in the video description as soon as the show ends. If you follow me on Twitter, you'll get a notification when that happens. And if you have something that you'd like me to talk about here, you can hit me up and let me know. My contact details are in the video description, or like I said, you can tweet with the CNCN hashtag, and one of us will pick it up. I want to thank Sajad for his help in finding information for me to use in today's show. If any of you would like to participate more frequently, let me know and I'll give you access to the CodyMD document where we're just collecting information that I extract every night to turn into the next day's show. If I mentioned a tool that you use, let me know in the comments. I love to hear the things that people are using. And if you liked what you saw today, of course, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell, get notifications, do all of those things. Share this with your friends. I see that we're getting more people watching as the days go by, but I really want to turn this into something where people get up, make their coffee, and like have it on in the background learning about stuff. There's always stuff to talk about. So thanks again. Have a great day. And of course, keep learning.